Yeah. So I shared it, and then I'll just like retweet it so you guys can. Okay. All right. So my talk is kind of long, so I'm gonna try to I don't want to like speed through it, but it's really kind of long, so I'm gonna try to go like I guess as fast as possible because I really want like a Q&A section. So yeah. So I'm gonna hopefully talk for about like 45 minutes, and then at the end of the talk, I'm gonna leave about 15 minutes for like Q&A questions, that sort of thing. Um, yeah. So to begin, my name is Simone. I'm also known as SolarSimone on the interwebs, and I'm here to talk about Angular Synastry. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a queer Black astrologer from Dallas, Texas, currently residing in Nairobi, Kenya. I've been studying astrology for the past 6 years and have recently begun an official consulting practice as of this time last year. Although I'm not currently open to consultations, I'm still an avid student of astrology, and I'm happy to present this talk today. So during this talk, I'll be using whole sign houses and traditional rulerships, as well as the outer planets and the nodes. I'll be talking for about 30 to 45 minutes, with hopefully a Q&A section, all that stuff. So please refrain from asking questions until the end. All right, let's begin. So what is synastry? So basically, synastry is kind of like a method of astrology that overlays two natal charts in order to understand the dynamic between two individuals. So synastry is not just for romantic relationships. It can analyze like I think seventh house relationships of all kinds, and the seventh house also does include like open enemies. However, in like non-antagonistic relationships, so aka not your enemy, synastry I think basically kind of analyzes why people are compatible and how people can use their compatibility to strengthen their relationship. So, Angular Synastry. So this is a branch of synastry that examines how an individual's planets interact with another person's angles and vice versa. So the angles or the stakes in a birth chart basically are the four main corners of a chart, which are the most important and central to chart interpretation. Yeah. So I kind of think that angular synastry can describe the potency of a relationship and can help you figure out why you guys just click. It doesn't indicate that the relationship will work out forever, but it does show a point of connection. I feel like I'm talking really fast, so if anybody wants me to slow down, just like let me know. Okay. So the angles of the birth chart. So in quadrant house systems, the angles are the cups of the first house, which is ourselves, the fourth house, which is our families, the seventh house, our partners, and the 10th house, our reputations. This is also known as the ascendant, the IC, the DC, and the MC. So first, the ascendant. So the ascendant is also known as the rising sign. It generally describes your personality and way of relating to the world. It also describes the condition of your birth. The IC. So the IC is basically the cusp of the fourth house in quadrant house systems. So it basically represents privacy, safety, childhood, ancestry, and secrecy. It is our home. The descendant. Third, we have the descendant, which represents what we are not. In traditional astrology, it represents the other, but in modern astrology, it can also be seen as our shadow selves or the parts of us that we reject. The descendant can also represent our partner, usually in marriage. There's a technique that I learned from Mo and Anok's Davison talk that says that the deacon that your descendant is in can describe the qualities of your ideal partner. So, for example, my descendant is 12 degrees Capricorn, or the second degree of Capricorn, which Austin Coppock describes as a place of dreaming and building, labor and design. It is both architectural and heroic, for it requires both patience and effort. This means that my ideal partner might be someone who is idealistic but driven enough to cement their dreams into reality. This technique is nice because it adds a bit more color to the vision of your partner rather than going off of the archetype of its sign and the ruler. And then finally, we have the midheaven. So the midheaven of the MC indicates our public persona, reputation, legacy, and what we want to be known for. Yeah, so that's kind of like a brief intro to the angles. now I'm going to talk about angles of the same modality or quadruplicity. So basically the zodiac can be split into 3 modalities, also known as quadruplicities. These are the different phases of the season. Okay, wait, there's like, okay, sorry. Okay, yeah. So the modalities are basically different phases of the season. These are the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, which represent the beginning. And then they're the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, which represent the middle and indicate certainty, and stubbornness. Finally, there are also the mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, which represent the end of a season and indicate change and flexibility. When your ascendant is in one of those modalities, let's say, for example, Cancer, which is cardinal, usually the rest of the angles would be in the same modality. And even if your IC-MC axis is in a different modality than your ascendant, let's say Virgo, Pisces, which are mutable, then your 4th house and 10th house will still be Libra, Aries, which are cardinal just like Cancer in whole sign houses. In any case, having your chart's angles in the same modality as your partner is usually a great benefit. Ancient astrologer Dorothea said that a couple is suitable if the ascendants of the couple are in the same cardinal. If 2 of the luminaries or one of the 2 is in the ascendant or midheaven, then it is also suitable. For example, if you and your partner both have fixed ascendants, then y'all's general outlook on life will be characterized by stubbornness, certainty, loyalty, and inertia. Similarly, if y'all both have cardinal ascendants, there'll be a willingness to initiate, take action, and create something new. If y'all both have mutable ascendants, y'all could both be scattered, flexible, and open to change. This type of compatibility will mostly permeate into how y'all deal with other parts of your lives, including one-on-one relationships, which is the 7th house, home and private life, which is the 4th house, and career and reputation, which is the 10th house. All right. Okay, let's talk about angles, conjunct angles. So I don't really have time to go through all the manifestations of this, but I would like to talk about when another person's angles collide with our own. So this is kind of like similar to the whole thing of you having your rising in the same modality as someone else, because that's usually when this will happen. So we can also, there's so many different variations, but I'm just going to talk about the ascendant and how that interacts with the other angles in synastry. Yeah, okay. So, okay, so when your ascendant is conjunct another person's IC, then your partner's ideal version, then you are basically your partner's ideal version of home and family. Your personality lends itself naturally to your partner's vision of comfort, safety, and familiarity. Perhaps your partner is comfortable sharing secrets and building a private life with you. In turn, your partner's home life and sense of comfort allows you to be your most authentic self. Okay. Moving on to when you have a flip chart of each other. So I have a Cancer rising. So this would be, I guess, a person with like a Capricorn rising. So my ascendant would be conjunct their descendant. So which would make me the literal real life manifestation of their ideal partner. So if you have this where the ascendant is conjunct another person's descendant, then your personality and appearance fit exactly into what that person has imagined their perfect partner to be. Like I said, this happens in flip charts. And then next, when your ascendant is conjunct another's midheaven, then your identity and persona naturally corresponds to your partner's ideal public image and reputation, career, and legacy. Your personality is a vision of how your partner would like to be publicly known. In turn, your partner's career goals and public aspirations support your idea of self and outlook on the world. Finally, when your ascendant is conjunct your partner's ascendant, so this is basically like, if you guys have the same ascendant, then you guys are basically literally the same person. Just kidding. So oftentimes this means that you guys have probably had a similar outlook in life, or even similar experiences. Of course, this depends on like your individual chart. But usually couples tend to go through similar like transits together. So like if you had, both have Cancer risings and you guys experienced the Jupiter Aquarius transit that happened last year through your eighth house. Maybe you guys both had like some type of financial or money problems happening at the same time, or that sort of thing. So yeah. And generally there's like a sense of like camaraderie and closeness between the two of you guys. Okay. I've gone a lot faster than I thought I would because I'm super talking really fast. Does anybody have any questions before I move on? I guess people can also request to speak. Yeah. And then or people can also put questions in the chat as well. But if nobody wants to request to speak, then I can move on. Okay, cool. So the planets. So I'm just going to talk briefly about the planets and kind of like what they signify, just so that I can kind of bring them back later towards the end of our discussion. So also in this talk, I'm going to be including the outer planets and the north node and the nodes. So yeah. So the sun represents your ego and sense of purpose. I like to see it as like what you want in life. The moon represents your emotions and comfort, which you need in life. Mercury represents your communication style and your reasoning process. Venus represents your aesthetic tastes and values, what you're attracted to. Mars represents your aspirations, actions, and motivations. Uh, kind of like how you fuck and how you fight. Um, Jupiter represents your ideals, principles, worldview, and deeply held beliefs. Saturn represents your time, limitations, fears, and boundaries, what you choose to commit to. Uranus Uranus represents your individuality and how you break the rules, shocks, and sudden changes. Neptune represents your fantasies and delusions, where reality bends, breaks, and dissolves. Um, Pluto represents your shadow self, intensity, and desire for transformation, struggle, and power. And then the North Node, I really like how Sam Reynolds describes it as your non-dominant hand. I feel like when he said that, like I think in one talk about synastry that I was listening to, it really just like blew my mind. Like I don't know, it really explained it so well to me. So yeah, so basically kind of like where you need to develop or where you need to like grow in this lifetime. And then the South Node is kind of like the opposite. So that is your dominant hand. So where you're too comfortable and also represents loss as well. Okay, so usually the benefics, Venus and Jupiter, interacting with the angles can show points of attraction and goodwill, while the malefics and sometimes the outers, which is Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, can show points of contention and strife. Yeah. So now that we've talked about the planets, we can discuss how they interact generally with the angles. So yeah. Okay, so this is kind of where the example charts are going to come up. And thank you so much to the KazimiCon people for posting that because I could not figure that out. uh, okay, so first we're going to talk about ascendant planet conjunctions. Okay, so when another person's planets hit our ascendant, that can create magnetic physical attraction. The way you operate fits some part of their worldview, which is incredibly sexy. For example, I had an ex who had a Cancer moon at 13 degrees, which is conjunct my Cancer rising at 12 degrees. My personality and way of being aligned with their emotional needs and comforts, which is part of why we got together. Moving on to the IC and planet conjunctions. So when another person's planets touch our IC, they feel like home to us, comfortable and safe in a familiar way. In the next example, we have person A's Aquarius IC at 21 degrees, conjunct person B's Aquarius Sun at 22 degrees. From this, we can interpret that person B once in life fits in with person A's idea of home and family. So person B's ego and eccentric personality makes person A feel at home. Moving on to the descendant planet conjunctions. So when other people's planets kiss our descendant, they're the literal manifestation of our partners, of the other that we've dreamed and hoped for, of the part of ourselves that we've been waiting for all along. So in this other example, of some friends that I know, person A, their descendant is at 19 degrees of Pisces, is conjunct person B's Venus, which is also at 19 degrees of Pisces. So from this, I could infer that person A's ideal version of a partner is aligned with person B's aesthetics and values. Person B is deeply attracted to person A. Okay, and then finally, midheaven planet conjunctions. When the planets collide with our MC, they can elevate our status and reputation and inspire us to chase our ideal version of success. In our final example, person A has their Aquarius Mercury at 15 degrees conjunct person B's Aquarius midheaven, which is also at 15 degrees. From this, we can infer that person A's communication style and way of reasoning matches person B's reputation. Person A might have had conversations with person B that might inspire or influence person B's career goals. In turn, person B's aspiration also might give person A new ideas. So as you can kind of tell from like all of these examples, there's usually like some type of like mutual benefit that kind of happens when this type of synastry occurs. So usually like kind of, I think especially with the ascendant ones, kind of I feel like one person kind of almost inspiring the other person and vice versa. Obviously depends on the planets involved, but that's a little bit how I see it. So yeah, I'm gonna take a quick water break. But if anybody wants to be a speaker and like ask a question or anything, I'm going way faster than I thought. So it'd be, yeah, if anybody wants to do that, that's fine. Okay. Moving on to all the planets. Yeah. Okay. Whatchamacallit? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is where I kind of wrote some delineations for whatever planet or node is conjunct the ascendant. And so I don't really have time or really want to go through all the different planets conjunct all the different angles. But honestly, I kind of feel like a big part of astrology is kind of like learning the general framework or idea behind how something works. So I'm hoping through these examples you can kind of like kind of take that um, and kind of interpret it for your own chart or for you and your partner's chart for all the other angles, just through kind of knowing like what each individual planet means and like represents, and then also what all the angles like mean and represent as well. So yeah, so I'm gonna kind of go through this like a little slowly because I don't know why I'm talk so fast, but anyway. Okay, so yeah, okay. Yeah, so this is Hillary. All right, so the sun. So when another sun is conjunct your ascendant, the sun person can provide a sense of warmth and joy. Sometimes the sun person may want to be more like you, especially if they have a different ascendant than their sun, because you operate in a way that satisfies their ego. So, like for example, like I don't know, I'm just gonna keep using myself. So I'm not really friends with a lot of Cancer suns, but I guess theoretically I could be because I do have a Cancer rising, and so that could be a thing. And so if I'm friends with a Cancer sun that has a Libra rising, I might maybe the way that I carry myself might be a little bit more in line with the way that their ego or like their life force or like their vitality or like what they want in life is kind of like, you know, how they want to get it. And I feel like I read a really nice article a while back that was kind of explaining um maybe in more modern time terms like um the difference between the sun, the moon, and the rising. And it kind of talked about how the sun was kind of like what you want in life, and the moon is like your needs, and then your ascendant is kind of like how you go about achieving those things. And so for a Cancer sun, I might be achieving these things in like a Cancerian way that is very attractive or interesting to them, especially if they're, like I said, if their sun is different than their rising sign. Um, so yeah. All right. So going on with the moon. Um, so yeah, when another's moon is conjunct your ascendant, the moon person is likely physically affectionate and nurturing. Your way of being can also remind them of their mom in a positive or negative sense. So I'm way more, I have way more Cancer moon friends or people who have Cancer moons in my life. Um, and so I don't know why that synastry kind of happens with me, but yeah, but I definitely do love my Cancer moons. And so we kind of have that same synastry of that, yeah, that moon conjunct ascendant. Yeah, and I feel like it always is like a really nice time. And I also do feel like Cancer moons also do help me become more in tune with my emotions in a way, because they like literally are like the moon themselves. So okay, so Mercury. So when another person's Mercury is conjunct your ascendant, y'all most likely have a compatible way of communicating. Perhaps the Mercury person says things that reflect things that you've also thought or done. Their reasoning will also align with your worldview. Um, yeah, so kind of like that. So I feel like that could be, depending on obviously a lot of factors, can also indicate some really nice like communication styles. Yeah, I don't know why I kind of see like this Mercury person just kind of like blurting out stuff that you're like, wait, I've kind of thought about that. I don't know. And then yeah, okay, so then Venus. So I love this one. I think Venus is like a really nice, Venus conjunct the ascendant is like a really nice yeah, um configuration to have. But yeah, so when another person's Venus is conjunct your ascendant, you will most likely embody everything the Venus person finds attractive. Venus can sometimes represent the spouse, meaning that your personality can represent their ideal art form or their ideal form of partnership. Yeah. Yeah. And then Mars. So this is when we start kind of touching on the more of the malefics, which aren't necessarily so positive. But yeah. So one of the person's Mars is conjunct your ascendant, there can be a bit of tension in the relationship. While y'all might be physically attracted to each other and have a great sex life, you also might take your frustration out on each other in unhealthy ways. The key is to make sure that y'all's conflicts are generative and not reductive. So yeah, so I definitely know some friends actually. I actually know two friends who actually, one has a Virgo Mars and the other one has a Virgo rising. They actually both have Virgo risings, but and yeah, their relationship definitely was really contentious. Because of that, and like I think we pulled up on one of those like the AstroSeek like synastry generator, and they were like, oh yeah, you guys are so attracted to each other, but like all these problems because of that Mars in the first house for both of them, causing a lot of issues. So yeah. And then Jupiter. Okay, so one of the person's Jupiter is conjunct your ascendant, you might have a strong spiritual bond. I feel like a lot of people kind of forget that Jupiter is like about spirituality in a lot of ways, and I feel like that kind of shows up through Pisces. And so yeah, even Sagittarius actually, but yeah. So anyway, so they might make you laugh, and y'all could have an easy going connection. Y'all can go on trips together and generally learn and explore together. The Jupiter person's beliefs and philosophy on life aligns with your worldview and general demeanor. Yeah, so I think this could also be like a really like yeah, like fun placement as well. I could also see the Jupiter person, because Jupiter represents teachers and stuff, being a teacher to the ascendant person. Okay, I have a request from someone, so I'm gonna say yes. Wait. Okay, Sunny, do you want to speak? It's connecting. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
give
right.
it a minute to catch up.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. All right, Sunny, if you still want to speak, I'll let you speak for a minute.
While we wait for Sunny to get up here, do you have a section for where you're dealing with someone who has a stellium and it's on an angle? Oh,
No, I don't, but I can definitely talk about that in the Q&A. I'm almost done with
excellent.
with stuff, so all right, okay. Sunny, you can also talk in the Q&A. It's probably gonna be a long one because I'm almost done because I spoke so
Yeah,
fast in
just
the beginning.
Sunny, since it still isn't open up, just use the comment section below, and everyone else who doesn't feel comfortable speaking can use it as well to send their questions, and I can read off for them when the question and answer portion begins.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So for where am I even at? Yeah, we did Jupiter. Okay. So Saturn. Um, yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, from this it kind of gets pretty negative. But okay. So when another person's Saturn is conjunct your ascendant, the Saturn person might provide a sense of structure to your life. You might fall into a routine and easily commit to each other. However, the Saturn person might act as an authority figure towards you, especially since depending on your ascendant, the Saturn person may be way older, way younger than you. So, for example, I have a Cancer rising, so people who have Cancer Saturns are like going to be like I have Saturn Aries, so they're going to be significantly older than me. Um, and then yeah, and so basically, the Saturn person might act as an authority figure or even act as a quote unquote jailer, restricting the ways you can be yourself. The way to overcome this is to help the Saturn person loosen up a bit and to build structures together that are both beneficial. So I think that Saturn and any type of synastry type thing is definitely going to be pretty good for commitment. But I think that it's also nice if you have like a benefic, like for example, like Venus or something, kind of like mitigating those like the harsher effects of Saturn. And then Uranus. So one of the person's Uranus is conjunct your ascendant. The Uranus person might awaken something in you. They might shake something up and take you out of the status quo. They might invite you out on new adventures and change your opinion about things. However, they could also be potentially an unstable partner and cause a bit of chaos in your life. The way to avoid this is to be open to change and to be generally flexible. So, um, yeah, with this one, I don't know. I feel like something about this, I would really be really curious if like people like do research on this about the presence of like Uranus synastry within like queer relationships, just because of that, like I said, like awakening something within you or whatever. I can see that being very heavy in that type of context. But yeah, so it has benefits, but also a little bit of downsides. And then we have Neptune. Okay. So, when another person's Neptune is conjunct your ascendant, the Neptune person could dazzle you or fulfill some fantasy that you didn't even know that you had. This could also be vice versa. Your relationship could be filled with a sense of idealism, bordering on delusion. You and the Neptune person could also have inaccurate pictures of each other, built on projection and wish fulfillment. The trick is not to let yourself get carried away in the fantasy and to be honest and open with each other. Um, yeah, and I think it's also kind of interesting as we kind of get into like the generational planets like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, is that, like I said, depending on your rising, this person could be like, way older, way younger than you, which I think can also add a bit of flavor to that. So, like, for example, I'm like Uranus and Aquarius generation or something. So, this would be more with like, I would have this type of synastry with more of like my Aquarius risings and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I don't even know if the Cancer and Uranus generation is like even alive. I don't know. But I don't know. But yeah. And then we have Neptune. Okay. Oh, we already did Neptune. Yeah. And yeah, kind of like more about the Neptune. Yeah, just I think just kind of be aware of like being caught up in like the fantasy. I kind of feel like when I think of like aspects like Venus, Neptune, or like that sort of thing is also kind of known for this type of um type of whirlwind romance. Like, that's kind of what I feel about Neptune. Like, relationships that could potentially be like moving too quickly, and you kind of get caught up in like, oh my god, this is like my favorite person. Like, I love them all the time. Blah blah. They feel like they're like the perfect person to me because they fulfill X Y Z element of P. But then it's like take a step back and realize that like, hey, you have only known them for like a week. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like just kind of slow it down.
So
And
like a
also not knowing them.
pedestalization.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. um, and then Pluto. Okay, so when the person's Pluto is conjunct your ascendant, your relationship with them could be ripe with power struggle and conflict. There could be amazing sexual chemistry, and you might feel like the Pluto person is able to stare deep into the parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed. There could also be harmful relationship dynamics where the Pluto person might try to lord over you or assert their will over yours. The Pluto person may also act obsessive towards you. I kind of think of like, the desire to like live in somebody else's skin. I feel like that's very much like, I don't know, like gives me very Plutonian or whatever. Just like wanting to like merge or something with them. Anyway, so the key is to enact healthy boundaries in the relationship and also not spend all your time together, which honestly is like a big relationship tip in general because you shouldn't be doing that anyway. But I think in sometimes you can get really carried away if you feel like you've met your favorite person and you just want to do that all the time. And that may, lead to a lot of unhealthy things. All right, speaking about the North Node and the South Node. So the North Node is when another person's North Node is conjunct your ascendant. It might trigger the growth um, that the North Node person needed to achieve during this lifetime. Your way of being might be uncomfortable yet attractive to the North Node person, and you may force the North Node person out of their comfort zone. The North Node person might also make you more ambitious and driven. So, in this, yeah, so kind of like speaking kind of more about that, like just with the North Node being like your less dominant hand or like just something that you just don't do often, like that sort of thing. I think that like when you see someone who has the same ascendant as your North Node, so for example, I have North Node in Virgo. Yeah, so like Virgo risings, which is actually funny because I'm actually friends with a lot of Virgo risings now that I think about it. I never even realized that. But yeah, so like that kind of so those Virgo risings, like they have their lives together in ways that I can't even like imagine. And that inspires me to be a better person. And I'm pretty sure similarly for anybody who has North Node in Cancer, I might make them like more emotionally open and vulnerable ways that they didn't even like realize with that cancer. I might make them feel safe. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of, so I definitely do think that it's not necessarily like the worst thing to have, but then it's also like the North Node and a lot of mythologies and stuff like that is known as being like very ravenous and very like, insatiable and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it's like, okay, this it might lead this person to feel like never satisfied with you in your relationship. So I think that that's also like another like thing to kind of like I don't know, not worry about, but I guess kind of like keep an eye on, I guess. And then finally, the South Node. So when another person's South Node is conjunct your ascendant, there might be a feeling of inexplicable familiarity even upon your first meeting. You might feel like you've known them all your life, or that it is fate or destiny that has brought you together. These feelings of deep comfort, while pleasant at first, might lead to codependency and stagnancy. You might regress into old habits and feel generally complacent. The way forward is to recognize when those complacent feelings arise and notice when they become harmful. Also, avoid spending all your time with each other. So, yeah, so it's kind of like the complete opposite, I guess, of the North Node, literally. But yeah, so kind of like this, it's like I don't know. I think North South Node synastry can be really attractive because there is like that feeling of like, oh, like I've met you before, or like if you believe in past lives and all that stuff, or just even that like instant kind of like yeah, like it's like bonding where you're kind of like, oh, okay, like this person makes me feel comfortable. They make me feel like I can be myself in ways that maybe I couldn't be around other people. But I think the issue is that I don't think that this type of configuration or type of symmetry necessarily um inspires like change or like growth or like any type of movement. I feel like it definitely is more of like, okay, like, okay, cool, we like each other as we are, like why change that, you know what I mean? And that may even be including like your flaws. Like I could see this being the type of synastry that enables flaws, each other's flaws and stuff like that, instead of like trying to like work on that together. And then yeah, so that's kind of like the talk about the planets. But now I'm just gonna kind of summarize or wrap everything up. And then we can, yeah, talk about everything else. Okay, so in conclusion, synastry can be a fun way of looking at relationships, but the key is not to take it too seriously. While astrology might indicate certain dynamics and ways of relating, it is not the end all be all of every relationship, and every relationship is capable of change. Having these astrological connections with another does not guarantee romance, commitment, or care. And likewise, the absence of these connections does not indicate discontent, distance, or repulsion. It is more complicated than that, is what I'm saying. All in all, I would say that the closer the aspect, the more important the connection. Use plus or minus about 2 degrees for this technique and have fun. Tips are also must appreciated. I forgot to like tweet this down there, but I guess I'll do it in a minute. But I'll tweet my Venmo, my Cash App, my PayPal link, and if you want to follow me in other places, um, my Instagram is SolarSimone888, so just like the same at name 888, and then my TikTok is also SolarSimone. And then if you want to find out when I'm going to be open for readings again, you can also follow my newsletter where I'll be making the announcement. And then finally, credits. Um, so I also was going to tweet this as well, but credits go to Sam Reynolds at Unlock Astrology for his amazing synastry talk, which was, I think, maybe earlier this year, which I really learned a lot from. And then also 7starsastrology.com, which is a website that talks about traditional astrology. Highly recommend. And then Rowan at Row Astrology for their stuff on queer synastry. That talk was also very helpful. And then also Mo and at Astral Tar and Anak at Stars and Sense for their Davison talks. Really great. And then A, who I think is a Vedic astrologer at Angel Numbers. And then Austin Kopic and Dorotheus. All right. So yeah, that's the end of my talk. If anybody has any questions, yeah, this would be the time. But yeah, thank you guys so much.
Wonderful talk. Really, really informative. Thank you so much for sharing your time and energy. And as mentioned earlier about stelliums, since
Mm,
sometimes you'll run into a person that has like more than like 3 or 4 planets in one sign and modality, such that like I know for my example, I'm currently talking with someone who has a Aries stellium, and I'm an Aries rising. So
mm.
it's like interesting, like how because it's like the Sun, Moon, Saturn, and Venus, and it's like, oh, hello there. Like you got some malefics, you got the luminaries, and I'm like, that explains like why they're so like impresses me. But I also find interesting is that you if it's whole sign, it'll be in my first. But if you use like a quadrant house system, like plus today's for example, it will be in the 12th. So have you seen any examples for where the planets aren't exactly conjunct an angle but close to it, and still see them show up like as any different flavor?
Yeah, like I definitely do think that if they're in the same like sign, I definitely do think that it's helpful. So like the way that I would kind of do it with you is like for this example or with you and your person is like, okay, I would be like, you said it was the sun, Saturn, and Venus. So I think I would first be like, okay, what
And
is the
moon,
one and moon? Oh wow. Wow. Um
right?
so wow. So I think in my head I would be like, okay, what is the planet that's closest to like your Aries rising? Like if there is one. So like let's say if your Aries rising is at 13 degrees, then like their sun is at like, 5 degrees, but then their Saturn is at 20 degrees, you know what I mean? Like that kind of being like, okay, like the sun is closer
Hmm.
than than Saturn would be. And so I feel like so I think in my head I'd be like, okay, the planets that are closer would probably have like the stronger effect compared to others, but I think they would all have effect. And like also in a weird way, I also do think that um I don't think it would cancel each other out, but I definitely do think that um you kind of would get like that mix like that. Kind of how I was saying about how like Saturn and Venus, like Venus kind of like sweetens Saturn. And so and I think especially kind of like in a conjunction. And so I think that um yeah, so I feel like that would kind of like help that, I guess, like that effect. So but then also like Saturn kind of like can put a dampen to like the sun, you know what I mean? Like so I feel like it's kind of like you might like maybe just kind of going off the cuff, like maybe with you and your person you're like realizing, oh okay, this person like with the moon being there is like nurturing some way or whatever, but then also has like a certain amount of like structure, brings a certain amount of structure to your life with like Saturn, and then also is like attracted to you kind of like with that Venus or whatever, and then the sun brings that like vitality, but then maybe the sun is also kind of like I said, like, or maybe Saturn is also kind of like dampening some of the more positive effects, or maybe is making them a bit like more stoic than you would like want or something, even though they have like Venus and like the moon and everything, so so I guess what I'm saying is that they all kind of like interact in their special certain ways. And then I think the 12th house, like I don't really use quadrant systems that much, but I definitely do use them when it does come to stuff like with the 12th house, because I definitely do feel like I don't like it's a I don't know, I guess I just kind of like a big difference going from the first to the 12th. And I feel like when you do have stuff in the 12th, because it is a cadent house, um like those planets are a little bit like dampened, or kind of like I think Sam Reynolds said that like the 12th house planets are like locked in like a padded room. And so it's just kind of all like they're really intensely focused on doing something, but that energy isn't necessarily outwardly expressed in the same way as if they were in like the fourth, the 10th, the first, the seventh, that sort of thing. So I don't know if that explained helps answer your question.
Oh no, it explained it perfectly. Thank you so much. And then I got one more question since no one else has mentioned anything like requested the mic yet. How do you feel about secondary progressions for where maybe someone has a mutable rising like a Gemini and then it progresses to Cancer and they just have like an era of finding cardinal signs more attractive and then they progress after like that decade of romantic you know experiences. Maybe they pull a Taylor Swift, make a couple albums, and then they have a fixed sign like fixation for like a couple of years. Like, do you feel like that would be a thing, or would you say the static chart, like the natal chart, was that still supersedes and be like, maybe they'll like entertain a little bit of cardinal, a little bit fixed, but they'll like always like be mostly attracted to mutable. Like, do you see that?
No, I feel like I definitely can see it. Like I haven't really studied the progress charts or like secondary progressions in this context, but I feel like thinking about it from like a natal context, I could see how like so one, I feel like I would do like an overlay of the progress in the natal. So like with the progress in like the mid, I don't know, I'm trying to think. Maybe like the progress on the outside, the natal in the middle. Yeah. And so something like that. So where that you could see like also how your planets are kind of like moving, and like so for example, like so if you have the natal in the middle, maybe like you start out or whatever as like an Aquarius sun 22 degrees or whatever. And then I don't know why I can only use my chart as an example. But Aquarius sun 22 degrees in the eighth house. And then that has now progressed to a Pisces sun at like let's say like 15 degrees in the ninth house, and stuff like that. And so anyway, the reason I'm kind of like saying this is I think by like looking at your own progressions and stuff like that, I think that can also like I feel like once you understand that like really well, then I feel like you could also start applying that to like a synastry context of like kind of like realizing like okay, like what themes are kind of popping up in your own life that might make you like, for example, like if you have like a Sag Venus or whatever in the sixth house, and that progresses to a Cap Venus, and it starts to like be like right on top of your ascendant, and like maybe you've like never thought about Capricorns like ever in your life, even that's your descendant, you just were like no ma'am. But because that Cap Venus has now progressed across like directly with your ascendant, you might be like, oh yes, that's exactly like these people are so hot to me now, like that's exactly what I want. And I think that through understanding your own like progressions in natal chart, I think that that probably actually might make a little bit more not sense, but I guess just like make provide you with more clarity in terms of like what you are and aren't attracted to, versus I think doing it in like a total synastry context. I think you can do it in a synastry context. I think it'd be very interesting to kind of see like as kind of like your progress angles change, kind of like if you become more and less confident. And then another thing about that is that I saw something, I think Mo made this tweet which was really interesting, that I thought was really cool, was they were all like, they said something about how um like fixed signs or fixed risings tend to only have like one great love of their life, um and then like cardinal risings tend to have like multiple or kind of like always kind of fall in love, so potentially like Taylor Swift, I guess. And then um mutable risings, being like double bodied, will like only have like two great loves of their life. So I think that would be really interesting to see like if through like progressions, if that kind of holds a little bit true, where like if you know were a cardinal rising and then you shift to being a fixed rising, if you start to become like, you know, like more monogamous or more like, you know, one track minded in terms of like who you want to be with. And then if you from there, if like, you know, live long enough and your rising eventually shifts to a mutable sign, then you could see like maybe like, you know, you start to be like more, you know, fun with it and like loosey goosey, and like you start to like, you know, entertain multiple lovers and that sort of thing. And so yeah, I think it would just be really interesting to kind of see that. But yeah, I would say that in conclusion, I would to this question, I would say just really analyze your own progressions like first, and like know that like really well, I think, before trying to like build upon it, because I think oftentimes that will probably lead you more to the answer than trying to do like complicated stuff with it. So yeah.
Thank you so, so much. That was wonderful. And I got one last question. So, retrograde planets. Since you know, normally in a natal chart, they have a certain way they express themselves and manifest. But if they're on someone's angle, like say, you know, someone has a Mercury retrograde natally in their chart, but in their partner's chart, their retrograde Mercury is, let's say, on the ascendant, or would you feel like the partner would help the person with the retrograde planet express it more easily in a direct manner, or how do you think that interaction would go?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So I think that I haven't studied too much on this, so I'm just kind of like going off the fly. But I think that the ascendant person, because I think like I don't know, like your ascendant is you. Like I think it's like the most steadfast like part of your chart, assuming it's correct. You know what I mean? And so I think that the ascendant person, like let's say if you had an Aquarius rising or something, and then somebody had like Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, I think that the Aquarius rising would help out the Mercury retrograde person. And I think if anything, I think that the Mercury, I feel like the Mercury retrograde probably would stay stuff that the Aquarius rising would think like, would be like, oh, I was thinking about, but I think about it in a more negative sense. Like I feel like maybe the Mercury retrograde person would say something like out of pocket, like something that's inappropriate, but like maybe the ascendant person's like, oh, that's so funny. You know what I mean? But like, oh, that's funny, but don't say that in public. You know what I mean? Like that sort of interaction where it's still kind of like not um expressing itself in like the healthiest or best way because it's Mercury retrograde, but it's still like an interaction that is still kind of positive because of that interplay or that connection between the ascendant person and the Mercury person. And I think the ascendant person would help them kind of explain it better. I think some of the retrogrades that I could see being I guess to talk more on that topic with other planets that go retrograde. So like for example, like Venus retrograde with the ascendant person, I could see the ascendant person maybe helping Venus person find out their style. So like maybe the ascendant person dresses in a way that the Venus person is like, wow, this really hits. Like maybe they're super goth or something. Like they have a Scorpio rising, Scorpio Venus, and they're like, yeah, like, but then maybe the Scorpio Venus has like a Libra sun and is like, I'm really afraid to dress like this, or I'm really afraid to do whatever because you know, that Venus is retrograde. So it's just like, I don't know, it's like uncomfortable for them, or they feel like they can't really express those Venetian qualities, like, you know, in the same way, but the same way that the Scorpio rising person could. And then with like the Jupiter retrograde, I could see this being um in regards to like philosophical beliefs and stuff like that. So like maybe the Jupiter person um doesn't really know their like spiritual beliefs as well, or still kind of like trying to figure that out. And then, like maybe it's like a Jupiter Pisces rising, or sorry, Jupiter and Pisces retrograde or something. And then they meet like a Pisces rising who is just, like I said, authentically embodying their like spiritual beliefs or their world philosophy in a way that's like really attractive to like the Jupiter person. And the Jupiter person could never have really like done that in the same way. And then I guess finally like Saturn retrograde. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Anyway, yeah. So Saturn, so kind of similar, and especially since like I have Saturn Aries, and that's already in fall, and then I don't have it retrograde, but like people who do, I imagine that's like double difficult, in the sense of like like yeah, maybe they are really bad with like time management, or like maybe they just like will put all this energy into doing stuff like first or whatever, but then will burn out, or like they won't have the necessarily tools to complete it after, etc. And they mean Aries rising person, and maybe the Aries rising person has like a lot of Taurus or something in their second house, and the Taurus and like that combo is like perfect for that Saturn and Aries retrograde person, because they're like, oh, okay, great, like now you can and now the Aries person is like, here, okay, like I see you have the fire, I see you have the initiative or whatever, and like I have a lot of fix in my chart, so I can actually help you like build and like make sure that whatever you're trying to create actually maintains itself, instead of just what I mean, like burning out too quickly. So those are some examples off the top of my head I can think about how like the ascendant person with the retrograde planet could help each other out in some way.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that.
Yes. Any other questions before I guess we close this out?
Yes, don't feel shy. Mics are open. Comment section is also being watched in case you don't feel comfortable speaking. Once again, everyone, show some appreciation and love for our wonderful, wonderful speaker here for sharing all of that wonderful knowledge, giving a lot of us reasons to go look at, our charts, to just go look at that one era for where we were wondering, what were you doing? Messing around with those types. And like, oh, now it makes sense.
Exactly. And I think maybe later I will do like maybe like in a couple of weeks I can do like a tip space or something where people can send in charts with certain Angular Synastry questions, and I can like answer them in like more in depth if you have a specific person in mind that you're like, oh, okay, I wonder what this means or something. It would also be better too, I think, with in that context, to also like come with like maybe a more detailed question, not detailed, but I guess in the sense if you're like, oh, okay, here's me and this person, but like I don't know, we'd be fighting all the time. Why is that? Or what's going on? Or how can we help mitigate that? And then be better than just like, here's me and this person, because then it's like, okay, well, I don't want to make shit up about your relationship, so like
They'll just come at you with the "we can't quit each other," and then you see Pluto and Saturn on an angle, and you're just like,
yeah.
"Oh."
Exactly, like that sort of thing, like those type of questions I think would be like very helpful. Yeah, so like yeah. And also like my DMs are like generally open, so if you also want to talk with me further, then that's also an option. But I think in a couple of weeks, I don't know, maybe even in 2023, I think I will actually like open up my books and stuff like that, and um do like just general consults. Probably won't be Synastry, but yeah, but just anything like that. Yeah.